Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. And this one, I'm going to go over starts and sits for Week 11. I'll go through the first 7 games of the week, sort of go over which players I'd be looking to start in each of those games, give you guys a general feel for what I expect to happen in those games and why I'd be starting or sitting each player. Of course, this doesn't answer everything. If you guys do have any specific sit questions, just let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to get back to you guys, give you guys my opinion there. But it should be a lot of fun. We got a lot of good football this week. We have 4 weeks left with the general fantasy football regular season. So really important. A lot of us are in win now mode. Got to make sure that we're making sure we get wins each of these next 4 weeks, and every start sit decision that we make is going to feel even more important as we get into these crunch time games that we really have to win. So hopefully I can help you out here. We got a good time here. Got a lot of football games to talk about, and let's just get into it. Starting things off with a pretty good Thursday night football game here. We have the Commanders at the Eagles. For the Commanders, Jaden Daniels is a must start, and I'd obviously be starting Terry McLaurin as well. He's the wide receiver 5 overall on the season. Has been fantastic. But outside of that, I'm probably not starting any other Commanders. Brian Robinson should be good to go in this game, which honestly makes me unwilling to start a Commanders running back. Robinson is dealing with a hamstring injury, makes it tough to really trust him in your lineup because he could easily get re-aggravated and leave the game. And it makes Austin Eckler not a solid option either because he's not going to get the lion's share of the work. So not going to play either running back there. And Zach Ertz, he's a break glass option, but has been relatively uninvolved the last couple of weeks. I don't think this is a game where the Commanders are going to go out there and score a ton of points, so I don't really want to do that with Zach Ertz this week. For the Eagles, start all the usuals. You're playing Hurts, Saquon, Devonta Smith, and A.J. Brown. I'd probably sit Dallas Goedert in this one, though. Just doesn't feel like a game environment we're going to see. I don't expect this game to be 30 to 28 or anything like that. It'll probably be more in like the low 20s for each of these teams. These defenses are both sort of a little bit underrated. Both teams have the big playability, so it could work out there. But in general, I think this is not going to be a game where Dallas Goedert does a lot, so I would look to sit him if I could. Next, we've got the Raiders at the Dolphins. For the Raiders, Brock Bowers is probably the only one that I really feel like you need to start here. Jacoby Myers, Alexander Mattison, both very low-end options here. I don't really want to play either one of those guys. Doesn't really matter who's in at quarterback for me for the Raiders either. There's been talk of them potentially switching to Desmond Ridder. I think their head coach came out and said that Gardner Minshew is going to be the guy regardless. But the fact of the matter is, none of them are good enough to really support a secondary option. It's going to be Brock Bowers and really nobody else here. Again, if you're desperate, Jacoby Myers is an option. Alexander Mattison, he'll get some touches here, but I just can't trust that. I don't really want to go there this week. For the Dolphins, Devon Achane, he's a must start, obviously. Tyreek Hill, low end wide receiver 1. I'm probably still starting him. It's obviously sucked here, but this is a great matchup. The Dolphins under Mike McDaniel have been really good at just exploiting positive matchups here and sort of beating up on bad teams. So we certainly could see that start taking its head again here. So I think it's okay to start Tyreek Hill, obviously. Jalen Waddle probably would be on benches for me. He's just been so horrendous lately. It's tough to trust him, but there really is a ton of upside with him every single week, so I get it if you want to play him. This is a good matchup, so if you need to stream Tua, I think it's reasonable, but I think you can probably find a better option. And then Jonnu Smith, I didn't list him here, but he's a decent low-end 1 option as well. I don't feel like you need to start him, but if you need to stream the tight end position, you could certainly do worse than Jonnu this week. Next up, we've got the Browns at the Saints. For the Browns, David Njoku, Cedric Tillman both feel like really solid starts here. The Saints are not a defense that scares me. Njoku and Tillman are effectively what's making this offense work in Cleveland right now, so I'd be playing both of those guys. Nick Chubb, he's a low-end running back too for me. Good matchup here against New Orleans, so it could work out. We haven't really seen Nick Chubb be Nick Chubb yet, so I don't want to get too excited about it, but I do feel like you can play Chubb if you want to this week. Not really going to mess around with any of the other Browns, though. Like, Jameis Winston, I can't trust him after what he did before the bye. Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, both desperation options. You're hoping that they just PPR their way to relevance, and they could do that. So you could do worse than them, but I wouldn't expect anything great there. For the Saints, Alvin Kamara, he's an auto start. He's effectively the entire offense right now. Didn't have a fantastic week last week, but he dropped what should have been a 44-yard touchdown. Still had a ton of work. You're playing Alvin Kamara for sure. Taysom Hill, he's usable at tight end. We saw them involve him as a pass catcher, had an 80-yard touchdown called back due to a penalty. Not that Taysom Hill's the kind of guy that's going to have an 80-yard touchdown very often, but he is always a threat to score a touchdown every single week. He'll be involved enough that you can play him if you need to. And then if you need to play a Saints wide receiver, I think it's MVS. Obviously, he had a great game last week, 3 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. We've been here before, though, with MVS. He has a spike week like once every year, and then just disappears, gets people to play him after that great week and then not do anything. I wouldn't want to play MVS this week. I'd get that people are in like deep leagues. They're really desperate. They want to chase that upside. And Derek Carr has had some good performances with like Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, those like prototypical deep threats. And MVS does sort of at least fit that mold of a player. So, you could if you needed to. I don't want to, though. I wouldn't be playing MVS this week. Next up, we've got the Colts at the Jets. For the Colts, Anthony Richardson, he's back. It says like they're switching back to him for the remainder of the season. I think it's the right move, too. The Colts are effectively out of playoff contention at this point. They've got to build up Anthony Richardson, see what he can do. We knew he came into the NFL raw. He wasn't going to be ready to just light up the NFL right away, and he needs these reps, so I do totally think it's the right decision for them. That being said, though, it does lower the ceiling and floor for every single pass catcher in this offense, so big bummer if you've been excited about Josh Downs. Maybe you're hoping Adonai Mitchell breaks out. Michael Pittman. Those guys, I think we're not really going to be looking at somebody that's going to be really good for them in fantasy going forward. That makes Jonathan Taylor probably the only Colt that I'd be looking to start. Good matchup here against the Jets. They haven't been a very good run defense so far, but outside of that, I'm not going to go with any other Colts. Josh Downs would be the only other option if you need to. He is by far their best receiver so far this season, so you can go there if you need to, but I just wouldn't expect anything massive there. You're hoping for like 5 for 50 and maybe a touchdown. So I don't love it, but you can play Downs if you need to. On the other side of the ball for the Jets, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, they should all be in lineups here, but it's been rough. Breece Hall has been just far less efficient than he was last season. It sucks to like the fact that he's worse than he was last year with Zach Wilson. That's obviously a huge disappointment. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams have both been pretty good. Last week was awful, so it's tough to really read too much into that. But I think you're playing them. Just don't expect anything massive out of them. Like these guys were obviously guys that have been disappointing us this season. I wouldn't expect them to come out and just suddenly be fantastic this week. And I'm not going to mess around with Aaron Rodgers either. I don't think that's necessarily something I want to stream. It's a good matchup here, but I just don't want to go there. But that being said, you're still playing Breece, Wilson, and Adams. Just they're not going to be the kind of guys that like win you your week probably this week. Next, we got the Vikings at the Titans. For the Vikings, Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson, they should be in lineups for sure. Keep an eye on Aaron Jones and his health here. I think he's going to play in this one. It sounds like there's no real concern, but he was carted off in the middle of last game, came back and played. But Aaron Jones is a guy that's been known to miss time. You do see those injuries where guys come back into the game, and then it sort of flares up throughout the week. So you could potentially see Cam Akers this week. I doubt it's going to happen, but just keep an eye on it. Don't get caught red-handed there on Sunday. TJ Hawkinson, probably a must start at this point as well. They're hyper targeting him. He was second in the NFL among tight ends in first read targets last week, so they are making an effort to get him involved in the offense. Only played 46% of the snaps too, so that's going to trend up. I think I'm going to play TJ Hawkinson as a solid, probably fringe top 5 tight end the rest of the way. Jordan Addison and Sam Darnold probably be on my benches for me. I just wouldn't expect a whole lot out of this game. The Titans' defense is actually pretty good. Their offense is not, so I wouldn't expect this to be a situation where you'll need Addison or Darnold to come through here. So it's going to be Jones, Jefferson, and Hawkinson, and then nobody else for the Vikings. For the Titans, Calvin Ridley feels like a must start right now. He's getting hyper targeted. He's playing really well, scoring a lot. 2 touchdowns last week, obviously 1 in garbage time. But I think you can play Ridley. It just would be tough to put him on your bench right now. And then Tony Pollard, probably the only other option you're considering for the Titans. Matchup is really bad here. The Vikings are one of the best run defenses in the NFL. They don't really give up checkdowns to the running back position very often either, so don't expect this to be a big game for Tony Pollard. You're probably still playing him because we all need running back production. He's going to get 15 to 20 touches in this game, so you're still probably playing him, but just don't expect him to go out there and put up 150 and 2. You're probably looking at 15, 16 touches for 60 total yards, a couple catches, and then you're hoping he scores. So don't expect anything massive, but you'll get some points, and that's honestly not the end of the world. And if he scores, you'll be happy. Next up, we got the Packers at the Bears here. Not a great matchup in this one for really anybody. The Bears have just been really just a sinkhole for fantasy production, as in like they can't score on offense and they have a really good defense. So it's just not fun to be a part of a Bears game for fantasy right now. Josh Jacobs, probably the best option for the Packers. The Bears do have a really good pass defense, but the run defense has been beatable so far this year. So Jacobs should be totally fine. You're going to play him. But probably not really excited to start any other Packer in this one. If I had to play one, it would be Jaden Reed. They'll manufacture some touches for him. He'll be fine in PPR. You're hoping he scores. But the Bears defense is really good. I wouldn't want to play the guys like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. Makes Jordan Love a really low-end option this week as well. You could certainly do it. Like Jordan Love's the kind of talent he can go out there and have a really big game, but they don't need to necessarily. They'll probably win this game against the Bears pretty handily. They're not going to need to do a lot through the air. They'll probably lean on Josh Jacobs, just not need to do a lot. So I think for me, it'd be Jacobs, probably Jaden Reed as like a wide receiver 3, and then nobody else for the Packers really this week. For the Bears, DeAndre Swift, I view him as like a low-end running back too. He's been really involved, he's looked good this year, so you're still probably playing him, but it looks so bad for the Bears. There's not a lot of scoring opportunities there, so it's tough to trust anything in terms of like a high-end output game. And outside of him, though, probably not going to start any other Bear. DJ Moore has been horrendous. Rome Odunze looked like he might have been coming on strong, but then put up a dud last week. Keenan Allen has looked awful. Cole Kmet, 2 straight just horrendous games. I'm not going to play any of those guys. It's just going to be DeAndre Swift and nobody else for the Bears. And the last game we'll go over this week going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Detroit Lions. If you want to sit every single Jaguar, you can certainly do that. I don't hold that against you at all. That being said, though, Evan Ingram, a solid start in PPR. He will get hyper targeted. There'll be low quality targets, but this team's going to be trailing in this game. They're going to have to air it out. Evan Ingram's still probably going to be okay for fantasy, even though the Lions have actually been a really good defense against opposing tight ends so far. I believe they've given up the second least points to opposing tight ends so far this season. Outside of the Evan Ingram, though, Brian Thomas Jr., a low-end wide receiver 3 for me. Like, it's just tough with Mac Jones. I don't expect there to be a very big ceiling there. He doesn't seem to be 100% either, so it's tough to trust him. I think you can use him in deeper leagues, like 12-team and larger leagues. You can use him as a low-end 3, but I wouldn't expect anything massive out of him this week at all. We're really hoping we get Trevor Lawrence back at some point so we can elevate this offense again. And I'd probably sit the running backs in Jacksonville. Tank Bigsby didn't practice on a Wednesday, though, so if he happens to miss this game, Travis Etienne does become moderately interesting. If he's the only guy there, I think you can play him, but I just wouldn't expect anything massive. This offense is not good. The Lions' run defense is fantastic, and honestly, Etienne himself would look bad this year, so I don't love that. For the Lions, start all of them, though. The Jaguars are one of the best matchups for opposing players in fantasy across every single position. The only real questions, like we're obviously starting Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra. Those are easy auto starts every single week. The only real questions there are Jameson Williams and Jared Goff. I feel okay playing them both, but obviously it's going to depend on your options there. Jared Goff probably right on the cusp of being a top 12 quarterback this week. Jameson Williams, he's a dart throw at the flex position. I'd rather play him than Brian Thomas if that helps you guys at all. There's just more upside there for me, so I'd prefer that. But the floor is 0 for Jameson Williams, obviously. If Stan Laporta does miss this game, which sounds likely, he didn't practice on Wednesday, left the game with an injury on Sunday. We could see Jameson Williams put up a pretty big game here, so if Laporta misses, I'll feel a lot more confident starting Jameson Williams, and it wouldn't really hurt my confidence in streaming Jared Goff or any of that. So start your Lions and just probably avoid the Jaguars as much as you can this week. So that'll do it for the part 1 starts and sits for week 11. Up next, I'll be going over the final 8 games of the week, cover every single other team, go over every other single player, and just do my best to get you guys locked and loaded and just go over the best starts and sit options for this week. Again, if you guys do have any specific start sit questions, just let me know in the comments. I love interacting with you guys there, helping you guys get those lineups set. Like I said, we got 4 weeks left in the regular season, so a lot to go over here. 4 really important games for a lot of us. A lot of us are fighting for buys, fighting for playoff spots, doing everything we can to scrap and claw our way in there. Making sure we win this week is going to be a huge part of that. So I'll do my best to help get you sorted out. Make sure you drop a comment with any questions you have. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you get access to all the future content. And then, of course, if you like this video, if you made it this far, just give it a thumbs up. It helps me out quite a bit. Other than that, I'll catch you next time, guys. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.